Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, December the 5th, 2020. It is currently 11:41 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church located in Ovalo, Texas. I want you to consider the following carefully. The philosophy of the man in the street is to get through life with minimum of self-sacrifice and a maximum of self-indulgence. Listen to that again. The philosophy of the man in the street is to get through life with a minimum of self-sacrifice and a maximum of self-indulgence. Let me read that one more time. I really want you to let it sink in. The philosophy of the man on the street is to get through life with a minimum of self-sacrifice and a maximum of self-indulgence. The philosophy on the street is don't sacrifice yourself. No, don't self-sacrifice. Don't give anything up. Get what you can get. Don't give, get. Don't give, take. Look out for yourself. Look out for number one. It's all about you. But in contrast to that, we read this in the Bible, Luke chapter 9, verse 23. And Jesus said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. That is self-denial, taking up the cross. That is self-death, and then following someone else. Christianity's philosophy is no, deny yourself, die to yourself, and follow Christ. That's the Christian philosophy. Deny yourself. Die to yourself and follow Christ. Don't follow yourself. You deny yourself, you die to yourself, and you don't follow yourself. That's the Christian philosophy. But the philosophy for the man in the street is to get through life with a minimum of self-sacrifice and a maximum of self-indulgence. In other words, the Christian philosophy of life is in direct conflict with the philosophy of the world. The world it's about you. Take what you can get. Stand up for your rights. Fight back. Don't turn the other cheek. Don't love your enemy. No, it's about you. You get what you want. You focus on what you want. You focus on your will. You focus on pleasing your desires. But the Bible comes along and says, no. Deny self. Die to self. And you do not follow yourself. You're following Christ. You're surrendering yourself to another. You are sacrificing, you are laying down your life. You're sacrificing your will, your desire, your hopes, your dreams, and you're focusing on something else, on pleasing someone else, on glorifying someone else. It's not about your glory, it's about His glory. It's a radical, different approach to life. But can I say that I feel that for many Christians, this basic biblical understanding of life, this basic biblical philosophy has been thrown aside to embrace a philosophy of selfishness, to embrace a philosophy of self-will, of pleasing yourself, of your needs, of your desires. And we see it even within the church. It's everyone wanting their will. They want their way, and they will go find a church that will give them what they want their way right away. In fact, Christians have decided that the church is supposed to be a Burger King, and they come in to get what they want the way they want it. And if the church doesn't do what they want, you go find another church, and you don't care if you're leaving hurts anyone else, because it's all about you. We need to change instead of the Apostles' Creed, we just need a credo of selfishness posted on the walls of all church, because that's what we practice and that's how we live. And we've got to rethink this. Now, I say all of this because in this episode, I'm going to try to do something that's going to be misinterpreted, and I understand that. But let me remind you of what I try to do here. I try to make theology central. So whenever I look at the world, I don't care if I hear a song. I don't care if I watch a movie. I don't care if I watch a TV show. I don't care if I see a news story. I always try to look at it from a theological and spiritual perspective. Yes, I understand what it's saying about life, and I understand what it's saying about the temporal world, but I try to make theology central to my philosophy of life. Theology has to be central. What do I mean by theology being central? Theology is the study and knowledge of God. I have to see everything from a God perspective. Look, until I see God as he truly is, I cannot see anything else as it really is. My perception of reality is messed up if I don't see everything from a God perspective. I see God as he truly is, then I can understand everything else. And I will never understand everything else as it is until I see God as he truly is. It's just a very fundamental principle. You can study that principle by reading the first few chapters of Calvin's Institutes. I don't care if you agree with John Calvin on soteriology. You should definitely read what he has to say in regards to seeing life from the perspective of God. It's a fascinating, it's a powerful discussion. At some point, we'll have to pull out that section of Calvin's Institutes and discuss it. But it's so critical. So that's what I try to do. So if I see news about something going on with, say, President Trump, I don't try to see it from a political point of view. I don't try to see it from an ideological point of view. I don't even try to see it from a personal preference. I try to see it from a theological perspective. And I will argue that Christians abandon a theological perspective pretty much leading up to the 2016 election. And I will say 4 years of Trump has demonstrated that the church doesn't see anything spiritually anymore, because we see things politically. So we argue and we fight. And so everything becomes a political, a political war. The wear a mask. No, I'm not going to wear a mask because you're trying to take control and you're a liberal and every election results. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all become about us and what we feel and what we think, with no thoughts about anyone else. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at some things that Trump has currently, we could say, not doing. Some actions that Trump has, so we can look at some things he's not doing. We can look at some of the things that he is doing. But this is not a political statement. Listen to me carefully. Some of you listening, I know you love President Trump. I know you voted for him. I know you probably believe he won the election. I understand all of that. But I'm asking you to take off your Make America Great red hat, set it aside. I know that's horrible to do. Set aside your red hat. Try to put on a hat that says I'm a Christian, all right? Try to say I want to look at some of the things going on with President Trump right now and try to look at it from a biblical perspective. I'm not asking you to, I'm not here for you to send me 12 emails, but look at Biden. This is not about partisan politics. This is about taking a situation that is developing right in front of our very eyes right now in our culture that involves President Trump, based on things he's not doing and things that he is doing. And I want to look at it, though, from a devotional perspective and what it teaches you and what it teaches us, okay? What it teaches us, right? I'm saying things in an incorrect way, but that's okay. I'm doing it on purpose, right? I want us to see that I want us to see ourselves. I don't want you to see Trump. I want you to see yourself in Trump. Right? Does that make sense? This is not about Trump. It's about you and it's about me. It's about us. It's about we. Right? It's about you and I. That's what I want you to get from this. And I hate that I have to explain it. But if I don't explain it, I'm going to get 500 comments, emails sent to me making all kinds of political arguments. And if you're doing that, you're missing the point. I want to look at some things about Trump, and I want you to see you. And when you see you and when you see me, we see each other. I want us to ask ourselves, are we infected by a credo of selfishness? Have we rejected the biblical idea? Have we become the man on the street where we're like, no, minimum self-sacrifice and maximum self-indulgence? It's all about me. If I have a copy of the Satanic Bible nearby, I don't. I think I have it at home. We could look at the 9 statements of a Satanist, and it's all about self-worship. You're the God you worship in Satanism. You're the God. It's you. No, don't turn the other cheek. No, vengeance. Don't strike back at someone who tries to take from you. Get what you want. Now we say, no, I don't believe that. But are you sure? Because in 2020, it's been a situation that has arisen where are you going to focus on yourself or are you going to focus on others? Are you going to be worried about what's happening to others or only worried about you and your rights? And what I've seen within Christianity in 2020, it's all argument about our rights. It's all argument about us. It's all argument about what we will not do and what we won't do. It's not about self-sacrifice and humility and thinking of others and putting others before ourselves. It's been this whole wave of selfishness. And some would argue that this philosophy that has really, in some cases, I believe, washed over evangelical Christianity has, in some cases, arisen from a person that many of them voted for, which is President Trump, who demonstrates at times a narcissistic, selfish attitude that he's right now more focused on himself than anything else going on in the country. He's more worried about himself. He's more worried about his battles, his fights, not what's happening around us. And I want to take from that. Now, you may disagree with that assertion, but I think there is at least some truth to it, at least to some level. But I want to see us in that. I'm not here to condemn Trump. I don't believe Trump is a believer in Christ. I don't believe he is. Okay. But whether he is or isn't, I'm not here to judge him. I'm here trying to place a judgment upon ourselves that in him do we see us and his wrong actions. And every person has wrong actions. Every president, every political party. I hate politics. The whole system, I think, is corrupt, and I can't stand it. All right. So what I'm saying is when we look to these situations, we use this as an opportunity to look at ourselves and go, man, I see my selfishness in his actions. That's the way I feel. That's the way I think. Because I think the church right now has lost the plot. We've become so self-focused that it's about, like, churches are more worried about their rights than people dying. The Christians are more worried about, oh, you're going to make me wear a mask? How dare you? Than worrying about anybody else. And that's a sign that something has spiritually gone wrong. There's been a spiritual short circuit. There's a malfunction. There's something has gone wrong. Right? There's a failure here to understand the biblical mindset, which is, listen, deny yourself, die to yourself, and you don't follow yourself. That's basic Christianity 101. When I become a Christian, I die, I sacrifice, I decrease. It's not about my rights. It's about others. It's about Christ. And we will see that. But let's consider. I got news articles. I got news clips. I got so much. Let's just consider some things. Here's a headline. President Trump fixated on his own political fate as virus kills record number of Americans. So while President Trump is running around making a 45-minute video for Facebook arguing about, I won the election and it's being stolen and throwing out QAnon conspiracy theories, okay, while he's doing that, a record number of Americans have died. Instead of being fixated on himself, he needs to be fixated on others. Now, I'm not saying, listen, I'm not making an argument about the election. I'm not, whether he won or didn't win. Give it to the lawyers. Let them go to court. What you need to do is focus on still being president and governing and leading through a pandemic where a record number of people are dying. Right? I'm not saying deny legal. He's got lawyers to do that. He's got to be fixating. He's got to be fixated on what's happening to the country. The president has remained largely absent on a pandemic of historic proportions. We are living through a pandemic of historic proportions, and the president has basically gone AWOL. He's basically left his post because he's preoccupied on what's best for him. Now, again, I want you to see us, how we leave our post as Christians. We've gone AWOL from doing what we're supposed to be doing because we're preoccupied with self. A day after the United States coronavirus daily death toll nearly surpassed the numbers killed in September 11 attacks, President Donald Trump remained out of sight, fixated not on the raging pandemic, but rather on his own political fate. He is fixated on his own political fate Well, there is a raging pandemic. I'm looking at photographs right now coming from different hospitals, and they're horrible to see. Horrible to see. That's happening. And this article is a few days old. Look at the numbers of people that have died. The numbers continue to increase. I've got all kinds of articles here, but let's just continue reading. The president has made no public appearance. The president made no public appearance Friday, a day after the United States recorded over 2,879 American deaths caused by COVID. 217,000 plus confirmed cases and over 100,000 hospitalizations, all records. So a day that we broke records in almost every category dealing with the pandemic. Where was President Trump? Nowhere. Nowhere to be seen. Getting ready to take a drink of water? Nowhere. Gone. It's gone, just missing. Why wouldn't you be there speaking to the people, offering direction, comfort, advice? Trump has spent his waning days in office not focused on leading the United States through a historic, deadly crisis, but rather fundraising for his future political endeavors and sowing doubt in the country's democratic foundations. He's out there trying to raise money. He's out there trying to create doubt about the entire democratic process. Well, what do you hope to gain from that? Now, listen, I got no problem taking the legal challenges to court. That's a right to do so. But your focus should be, now look, everyone, we've got to stay together. We got to do this. We need to do this. He's got to set aside himself for the betterment of the country. Remember, it was supposed to be about making America great again. Well, make America great. And sometimes you have to, listen, give up your own pursuit, your own desire, your own ego, and your own right for the betterment of others. This is so true within the church. Now, listen, non-Christians are not focused on this mentality. Non-Christians are going to be, it's about survival of the fittest. It's about me. I understand that. I'm looking at what Trump has done from a Christian perspective. Not a political perspective. I'm not making a political statement about one is better than the other. The whole political thing is messed up. I know I'm going to have to continue to repeat these little clarifications over and over and over because, trust me, people will email me and miss my point. He's gone missing. He's focused on himself. He's raising money for his future political endeavors. What about the people suffering now? What about the situation now? Focus on others, not yourself. And that's the way Christians do it. Christians in the church do this. They don't focus on the church. They don't focus on what's good for their pastor, what's good for their fellow church member. They focus on themselves and will abandon everyone at the drop of a hat because they only care about themselves. President Trump continues to throw out debunked conspiracy theories about electoral fraud that courts across the country have rejected. The president and the Republican Party have collected hundreds and millions of dollars as Trump mulls another run for the presidency 4 years down the road. All the while, top U.S. public health experts have issued startling warnings. So the top experts, health experts, are issuing these startling warnings while the Republicans seem to be out there going, we need to raise money. We need to raise money. We need to raise money. For us, for our political agenda. The COVID risk to all Americans is at a historic high, the White House Coronavirus Task Force told governors Sunday in a report obtained by ABC News. We are in a very dangerous place due to the current extremely high COVID baseline and limited hospital. And there's more information coming to us about COVID. I won't read all of those headlines. None of those are good. We're in a very dangerous place due to the current extremely high COVID baseline and limited hospital capacity. A further post-Thanksgiving surge will compromise COVID patient care as well as medical care overall. Medical care overall is going to be compromised because of the post-Thanksgiving surge. And what did we see with Thanksgiving? People didn't heed the warnings. Don't travel. People traveled. People did what they wanted to do. Well, what about other people? What about, nobody cares about anyone but themselves. Nobody wants to sacrifice their wants for the good of others. for the good of the majority. No, if you want it, you do it, and you don't care about anyone else. This is the mentality that has to be purged from Christianity. It goes against everything the Bible teaches. More than 276,000 Americans have been killed so far, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention predicts 53,000 more lives could be lost by December the 26th. On average, one person died every 30 seconds on Thursday. Every 30 seconds, a person was dying. Where was the president? Trump has held few public events since the election ended on November the 3rd, with just one devoted to the virus, a November 13 Rose Garden gathering at which he touted what he characterized as the United States' unprecedented pace at producing vaccines. Asked Thursday what, if anything, the president was doing that day to address the pandemic, the White House did not offer any specifics. Asked about what he was doing Friday related to the pandemic, the White House didn't even bother to respond. What is happening? I could talk all day about the frustrations with this situation. Let me just give you, here's a head. Let me see if I got the news article here. Let me see if it opens. I've got another news article here. I may have to go to my notes. I've got a link to it, if I remember correctly. Here we go. Yes. The United States reported more than 10,000 COVID deaths in 4 days. 10,000 COVID deaths in 4 days. 10,000 people died in 4 days because of COVID. Now, I know I'm going to get some of you, I don't believe the numbers. I don't believe the numbers. You just continue to say you don't believe the numbers while people continue to die. You just live in your fairy tale world, but people are dying. And Christians, and that's what Christians want to do. They want to argue. They want to fight. They don't care about suffering and death. And Trump is the one who's demonstrating this kind of just like, it's about him right now. It's about him. The situation is out of control. But it demonstrates what's wrong with us. I've got some news clips. Here is a quick one. This comes from ABC News. Just listen quickly how this is presented, right? Because there's major crisis going on. Okay, and just note what happens here. It's crazy how this is really playing out if you're really paying attention. Just listen to how this report goes. The volume is a little low, but listen carefully.
Of course, now to the other crisis in this pandemic, millions of Americans out of work and in need. We learned today that 245,000 jobs were added last month. That's about half of what was expected. Unemployment did fall to 6.7%. Analysts say that's partly because some 400,000 people stopped looking for work. Tonight, President-elect Joe Biden's grim warning, pushing for Congress to approve that $900 billion relief bill. And Mary Bruce asking the president-elect, has he talked to the top Republican leader in Congress to get this done?
With millions of Americans in desperate need and the president focused instead on refighting the election, Joe Biden today stepping in to implore Congress to come together and pass a badly needed COVID relief bill.
Early today,
I want you to hear that. While the president is focused on the campaign issues, Joe Biden steps up. No, where's the president? The president should be working with Joe Biden to try to get this country through a very, very dark time that's only going to get darker in the next 2 to 3 months because the death toll is going to even increase. Infections are going to increase. And as we deal with the post-Thanksgiving surge, which is coming in the next probably 7 days, then we're going to end up in a Christmas surge. And why are we going to get that? Because of people will not do anything but what they want to do. They're going to only do what they want to do, and they're going to ignore all warnings. People traveling, because people don't care about anyone else. Now, again, the world, I expects it, but why is the church thinking that? Why are Christians not caring? I'll give you an example. My own family almost fell for this because on Thanksgiving they had made some plan that some people from Ohio were coming in, some people from Boston were coming, and I'm like, whoa, what are we doing? What are we doing? You can't do that in the middle of a pandemic. You can't do this. And then finally, my daughter acknowledged, oh, wait, I've been exposed to someone. And then finally, people realized, wait, this is a bad idea. And then everyone came on board and everyone understood it. I'm like, but there was almost a temporary blindness for a second that it was just like, oh, it's Thanksgiving. We want to be together. It's not about what we want. It's not about us. We, as Christians, we don't live for ourselves. We don't do that. We deny self. We die to self. We don't follow self. If you want to live for self, you need to find a different religion. Satanism, the Church of Satan probably has some openings. You could probably contact them in San Francisco and see if you can become a member. Taking a drink of water, because I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms. And they will celebrate selfishness. They will celebrate it. But Christianity, it's not about us. Listen to another report. Here's some things going on behind the scenes that you may not be aware of that the Trump administration is currently doing. Listen carefully.
Before we get to those conversations, though, still more breaking news to get to tonight. The Washington Post breaking this story tonight, which now that this story is broken, I feel like I should have been waiting for it. This story sort of suddenly makes a lot of otherwise inexplicable recent news start to make sense. You see the headline here at the Washington Post right now. Pentagon blocks visits to military spy agencies by Biden transition team. By military spy agencies, they mean the parts of the intelligence community that are under the rubric of the Defense Department, right? There's like 26 or 27 different intelligence agencies. A bunch of them, including some of the big ones, are under the military, or part of the Defense Department. And those are the ones that the Biden administration, the Biden transition, is being blocked from. So here we go, right? I mean, we have been wondering, and we have been covering on this show in recent days, the question of what Trump has been aiming at with what he's been doing at the Pentagon. With all the, forgive me, random junior-level screwballs he has been shoving into high-level positions at the Pentagon since he lost the election. We have been wondering what that was all for. Now it seems like this breaking news tonight at the Washington Post might be part of what this was all about. Here's the lead tonight at the Post. Quote, the Trump administration has refused to allow members of President-elect Joe Biden's transition team to meet with officials at U.S. intelligence agencies that are controlled by the Pentagon, undermining prospects for a smooth transfer of power. The official said the Biden team has been unable to engage with leaders at the NSA, National Security Agency, also the Defense Intelligence Agency, and other military-run spy services with classified budgets and global espionage platforms. The Defense Department rejected requests from the Biden team this week, despite a Trump administration determination on November 23rd, which cleared the way for federal agencies to meet with representatives of the incoming Biden administration. Current and former officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss a sensitive matter said the delays have impaired the Biden team's ability to get up to speed on espionage operations against Russia, China, Iran, and other U.S. adversaries.
Now, why would you do anything to prevent a smooth transition of power? Why would you do anything? Because of your own self-interest, because of your own selfishness, because of your own ego, because of your own pride, because of your own narcissism. Listen, I want you to see, I don't want you to see Trump. I want you to see yourself. How many times have you done things out of your own pride, your own narcissism? Because it's about you. You've made it about you. How many times does it show up that you've made you the subject, you the issue in your own home, in your church, at work, wherever? We've all done it. Again, I don't want you to see Trump. I want you to see yourself. How petty is this? He keeps losing in court over and over. I think I've got a number, of 50 court cases I think now we're at that they've lost. They've been rejected. And there's still more out there. No matter how many they lose, no matter how many they reject, they continue throwing out baseless claims. Why do you keep throwing out baseless claims that you're not being able to prove in court? Why? Because you undermine now people's confidence in the democratic process. Guess what you do? You don't help yourself. Well, I guess you do. You help yourself because you'll go down as the victim, and then you can use that to raise money to build your own brand, and then you can get access to other things when you get out there. But guess what? You're not helping. You're not helping the country. You're not helping the country move forward. You're not not producing unity. You're bringing discord, disunity, and destruction to very fundamental things in the United States of America. That's not good. Now, that attitude shows up in churches, why churches split, why marriages fall apart, why divorces occur. Christianity is supposed to be the religion that fights against self. It's the death of self. It's the exaltation of God and the abasing of oneself. That is what Christianity is all about. See this, don't see this through a political lens. See this through a Christian lens. This is not acceptable. Don't go, ooh, that's my team. Look, this is how some people watch politics as they watch a movie, right? In a movie, you've all done this. We've all done this. There's something going on in a movie where the hero of the story, the protagonist of the story, goes and does something that we should clearly not be for. Like, that's wrong. That's horrible. That's bad. But because we've gotten so against the antagonist, we're so opposed to this person and they're so evil, then we cheer on the hero doing things that are unethical and wrong. We celebrate it. This happens all the time. I'll just give you Chicago PD. If you watch Chicago PD, some of the things Chicago PD, that unit of police officers, detectives, they do things where you're like, what? You should be like, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. But there's almost a part of you, yeah, do that. Get that bad guy. And you're like, whoa. That's not ethical. That's not wrong. That's not moral. But you almost justify the means because of the end. You're like, oh, well, as long as we get to this end, I'm going to justify the means. No, that's not a Christian way of thinking. Well, so much politics the same way. It's for your team. If it benefits your team, you're all for it. But you're looking at it from a Christian perspective. Does this demonstrate, is that attitude godly and right? It's not here to make a judgment that one politician is more godly than the other. I'm saying you look at the situation and look at yourself. That's not the attitude you're supposed to have. You're not supposed to be vindictive, revenge. You're supposed to turn the other cheek. Love your enemy. You're supposed to place others before yourself. You should, from a Christian perspective, place the country before yourself. What is better for the country? What's best for the country may not be best for you. And politicians of all stripes are guilty of this. They put their own self-interest before the interest of the country. Right? So they're preventing the Biden administration from being able to do what needs to be done. We want that smooth transition. You don't want anything to go wrong. You want them to know everything they need to know so they can keep us safe and make hopefully good policy decisions. But let's continue. It gets more bizarre. Listen.
The inability to meet with the NSA was described as particularly worrisome. The agency is the largest U.S. intelligence service, and its eavesdropping capabilities have been a critical source of intelligence on threats as varied as weapons proliferation and foreign interference in U.S. elections. Again, the NSA and other parts of the intelligence community that are within the Defense Department, they are being blocked from doing any transition activities with the incoming Biden folks. We have been wondering what Trump has been up to with what he's been doing at the Defense Department. It has been unsettling what we've been able to see them doing there, but the point of it really hasn't been clear. We've had numerous guests and a couple of lawmakers on the air to try to figure out what might be the object there. Sort of feels like this might be it. This might be what they were aiming at. I mean, it was only a week after Trump lost re-election that he fired the defense secretary, Mark Esper. And, you know, the common wisdom, even everybody we talked to about it, described the firing of Esper as sort of an act of petty vindictiveness by Trump, which, of course, is not out of character and not hard to believe. But also, that wasn't enough to make sense of it, right? Think about the impact of Mark Esper and him being fired after Trump loses the election. Esper still has defense secretary on his resume. Honestly, if we're being real about it, getting fired by Trump will only bolster Mark Esper's reputation and probably his earning potential in the future. It will be seen as a badge of honor, the way this president is going down in history. And beyond that, whoever the president puts in there to take Esper's job after he fired Esper, well, that person's only going to hold on to the job for a few weeks under this lame duck president before that person's definitely going to be fired by the incoming Biden administration. It just seems like a lot of energy for not much payoff. Not much payoff either in terms of what Trump might get out of it or what kind of pain he might be able to vindictively inflict on Esper by doing it. Why bother? Why are they going through all this effort to get people who may have annoyed the president or not out of there after the election and to put in all new people? Well, it started with Esper, but then it quickly got worse or weirder, depending on how you think of it. Because it wasn't just the defense secretary. It was a whole bunch of the top positions at the Defense Department. They were all emptied out. People were either forced to resign or they resigned, and we don't know if they were forced to. But we lost in very quick succession the Pentagon intelligence chief, the Pentagon policy chief, the Pentagon chief of staff, even the guy in charge of the task force to defeat ISIS, which is a key counterterrorism role. All of those people were ousted and replaced in short order by Larry, Curly, and Moe. I mean, no offense to the actual stooges, but they really did bring in a series of young, not particularly well-respected junior-level staffers, Trump guys, and like Republican House staffers who had mostly been run out of lower-level jobs for getting involved in embarrassing conspiracy theory stunts around stuff like the Russia investigation and the mess around Mike Flynn. They brought in, like, the G team, not the A team, but, like, really the people who flunked out of intern level stuff. Today, they actually nominated to the Senate the new person they want to be installed as the Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security. It's a big deal job, right? This is a guy who, since the election, has called for Trump to impose martial law because he says Trump secretly won the election in a landslide, but Hillary Clinton and George Soros rigged it. So you can't tell that Trump secretly won in a landslide. This is a guy who tweets QAnon hashtags about how Democrats are all Satan worshipers who eat babies and JFK Jr. is going to come back from the grave and send everybody to Guantanamo. This guy, since the election, says that President Trump specifically secretly won California. Oh, really? In the presidential election last month. Trump lost California by like 5 million votes. But according to this guy who they've nominated to be an Assistant Secretary of Defense, Trump definitely won California. It's just secret. Last Wednesday, this guy tweeted that the coronavirus is a partisan plot because look how many Republicans are getting it. They've nominated this man to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for International Security. He's the best person for that job in America. I mean, even if Mitch McConnell, in his infinite wisdom, decides that this person should be Senate confirmed for this senior Pentagon job, the guy would serve at the Pentagon for like 5 minutes before Biden is going to be sworn in, and then he would definitely lose that job. Trust me. Why are they bothering? Why are they expending this energy? Why are they doing this stuff? What is worth all this time and energy to get into all the top jobs in the Pentagon? Every lunatic junior varsity QAnon Alex Jones MyPillow guy who thinks aliens speak to him through his fillings, so he needs to wrap his head in tinfoil before he crawls under his mattress to try to sleep, because that's the only place that's safe. I mean, why bother? Why are they doing this? What are those guys supposed to do there in these last few weeks in the Pentagon before Biden takes over? Well, maybe at least in part they're there so that the Biden transition has nobody sane at the Pentagon who will talk to them about what's going on right now in some of the most sensitive and important national security stuff that is potentially exploitable by foreign adversaries during presidential transitions, right? I mean, Biden's transition team is not getting briefed, we now know, on the spy versus spy stuff that happens between us and Russia and us and China and Iran and all the rest of it. The NSA can't brief the incoming Biden administration because the new Trump appointees at the Pentagon have decided that can't happen. The new Trump appointees at the Pentagon, not a distinguished bunch, but rushed in there at the very last second. Today, Trump fired the majority of people on something called the Defense Business Board. It's a sort of important Pentagon advisory board. Why did he want to get rid of all of the sort of business executives and grandees on this board? I don't know, but he replaced them with, I kid you not, guys like Corey Lewandowski is now on the Defense Business Board. Remember who Corey Lewandowski is? He was one of the Trump campaign managers, the one who was fired for being too punchy. Also, David Bossie was just put on this board. David Bossie is the political dirty trickster guy who Trump tried to put in charge of his post-election lawsuits this year before somebody told him that actually David Bossie is not a lawyer. And then David Bossie got COVID, so he couldn't do it anyway. But now he'll be on the Defense Business Board, along with Corey Lewandowski, when Biden's team takes over at the Pentagon, along with all the senior staff who Trump moved heaven and earth to bring in for the last few weeks here, right? These guys at their senior level Pentagon desks commenting angrily on YouTube videos about hydroxychloroquine, braiding their beard hair and organizing like fire-breathing open carry protests against the Illuminati, right? I mean, this is what they're doing at the Pentagon. The United States military is the largest and most capable military on the planet. The United States government is in the driver's seat of the richest and most powerful and most capable country on the planet. But it turns out that if you have terrible people running those entities and running them poorly, it doesn't really matter how big and powerful you are on paper or how big and powerful you might have been in the past. You can be rendered completely helpless and impotent by just having in the right place the wrong people who are terrible at what they do. That is, I mean, a lot of what we'll remember about the Trump era is the outrage. But what we will be living with from the Trump era is the failure, the deliberate, rank failure. Doing this to institutions that we need. That's part of what Fareed Zakaria is here to talk about tonight, specifically with regard to the bad U.S. handling of the pandemic and what comes next because of it. I am very much looking forward to that conversation, particularly because of what we're seeing happening in national security matters, which nobody's much paying attention to as Trump is wrecking the place as he tries to leave. But it's worth paying attention to this stuff. Today, the margin by which Joe Biden beat Donald Trump in the popular vote rose to a lead of more than 7 million votes. This is becoming more clear as more states finish up their vote tallies and certify their results. Hillary Clinton, of course, didn't beat Trump in the Electoral College. And that's why she never became president. But her supporters took some comfort in the fact that she actually did receive millions more votes than Trump did in 2016. Trump lost the popular vote to Hillary Clinton by about 2.9 million votes. But it looks like he's going to lose the popular vote to Biden by more than double that margin. That will make Donald Trump the only president to have ever lost the popular vote twice. And with Biden, we now know, topping 51% of the total votes cast in the election, that means that Biden got more of a percentage of the vote against an incumbent president than any candidate running against an incumbent president dating back to 1932. It's really hard to oust an incumbent. Biden did a better job of it than anybody since the 30s. Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post today noting that not since FDR just wiped the floor with Herbert Hoover in 1932 has anyone ever beat an incumbent president with this large a percentage of the vote. It was not close. It, in fact, was a historic defeat for an incumbent president of a considerable size. But President Trump still says he secretly won. He's sure he won. He wants to keep fighting. He needs to keep fighting. He needs you to give him your money right now so he can keep saying that he didn't lose. The president's lawyers, such as they are, filing yet another lawsuit in Georgia now. I think they actually filed another one in Arizona tonight as well. You know, in Georgia, though, you'll recall that they lost the initial vote count in Georgia. Then they lost Georgia again after the vote count was fully audited by the state. And then they lost Georgia again after they demanded a statewide recount. But regardless, more suing there now in Georgia, which of course means more billable hours, more urgent all capital letters, sirens blaring, demands for money from your conservative elderly uncle who doesn't have the money to spare, but he's nevertheless transfixed by the president telling him he needs help. He needs your uncle's cash. Hapless Trump lawsuits were thrown out again today in 6 different jurisdictions. Notable Trump losses today in Nevada and in Michigan and in Minnesota. But even though none of the Trump campaign claims have survived even the first brush with the legal system, where you actually have to bring proof to support your allegations, they're happy to just keep throwing anything against the wall indefinitely Today, we heard from Democratic Representative Malcolm Kenyatta in Pennsylvania, who we've talked to repeatedly about what Pennsylvania Republican legislators are trying to do to get on this gravy train. He alerted us to this. The fact that 75 Republican legislators in Pennsylvania, 75 House and Senate Republicans in Pennsylvania, signed on to a letter today telling their state's congressional delegation that they should contest Pennsylvania's election results for the Electoral College. Somehow in Congress, they should contest what the state reports. Okay, knock yourself out. What's the cost, right? Why not? Just keep this charade going. What is the cost? Interestingly, today, the hand-picked Director of National Intelligence for the Trump administration, John Ratcliffe, again, not a man who has covered himself in glory in this position. But nevertheless, today, John Ratcliffe admitted to CBS News, it appeared he admitted it sort of under duress. He appeared pained by the admission. But John Ratcliffe told CBS News this morning that the people who are getting the most out of this ongoing charade where Republicans pretend that maybe Biden didn't really win, that maybe Trump secretly won and we just have to figure out how to prove it. The entities, according to John Ratcliffe, who are getting the most bang for their buck out of that are our foreign adversaries, foreign countries that wish to do us harm.
Does the intelligence show that foreign adversaries are amplifying the voter fraud allegations?
They are.
Who's doing that?
I can't tell you.
But they are?
Yes.
And what's their objective?
To undermine public confidence in our democratic processes.
Why are foreign adversaries amplifying these voter fraud allegations we're hearing from the president and from Republicans? Because they want to undermine public confidence in our democratic processes. That's what our enemies want. That's why our foreign adversaries are boosting the signal on this stuff. Why are Republicans doing it? The president, it turns out, did not spend any of his own money on his reelection campaign this year. Why would he when he's got your uncle on the hook, right? New filings that the Trump campaign is actually bragging about show that they've brought in over $200 million after the election in mostly small dollar fundraising, almost exclusively via the ginned up Trump didn't lose the election fake voter fraud stuff, right? This fake Trump election defense fund that they've used to beg for money from Trump supporters all over the country. There isn't actually a financial entity called the Trump Election Defense Fund. They've just used that as a branding mechanism. And when you give money thinking that you're giving it to the Trump Election Defense Fund, some of that money just goes to the Republican Party for whatever they want to use it for. But the bulk of it goes into something that they call a leadership PAC for Donald Trump. And a leadership PAC is definitely the best kind of PAC if you're this kind of president. Because that money, again, more than $200 million raised and counting after the election, that money going into his leadership PAC, that's his money. That's his money now. That is money that he can literally spend on anything he wants. He can use it to just pay himself directly. He can just convert it into income. He can use it to pay for his living expenses, literally including food and travel and haircuts and stuff. This just becomes his bank account. This election fraud scam that they are running has turned out to be a way for Donald Trump to actually raise more money than when he was legitimately using donations to run for office. He's no longer running for office. He's now running to get you to give him money for his leadership PAC because that's now his money. He now gets to keep what he raises. What a better deal this is for him. I mean, back in 2016, he did actually spend some of his own money trying to get elected. He didn't spend as much as he said he was going to, but he did put some of his own money into his election effort in 2016. He spent none of his own money trying to get reelected in 2020. And we now know that by losing his reelection effort and running this scam where he claims he was robbed and he needs your help, by milking all this money out of his supporters with this claim, since the election, he has finally figured out perhaps the most direct way to monetize this life, to massively enrich himself through his purported career in politics. Financially, he's way better off losing and complaining than he would be by winning and actually having to govern for 4 more years.
Now, you may not like all of that, but the point is a lot of those things that are happening demonstrates that it's the very essence of something that we as Christians don't want to see in ourselves, where it's about us, 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 it's about us. We use everything for our own advancement. Let me just offer some scripture here to close this out, because I think this demonstrates what I've been trying to say. When we look at everything happening, this is vindictive, it's petty, it's vengeful, it's selfishness run amok. And I don't want you to see Trump. I don't want you to see the Republican Party. I want you to see yourself. I want you to see your church. I want you to see your family. That's what I want to use it. I'm using this as a devotional technique to get us to meditate on what the scriptures have to say. And one very key section of scripture is found in 1 Corinthians. Now, 1 Corinthians is this church where it's just absolute chaos in the church. 1 Corinthians is a letter written to a church, and in that church is just absolute chaos. And one of the major issues of the church at Corinth, if you read the whole letter of 1 Corinthians, is that everyone in the church is all focused on themselves. Even spiritual gifts. They think spiritual gifts is about them being exalted. It's about them, not for the good of the body, but for the good of themselves, for their glory. And there's problem after problem after problem in the church. And Paul goes to this very interesting section starting in 1 Corinthians 8. 1 Corinthians 8, he talks about meat offered unto idols. And he's like, look, if you eating meat offered unto idols causes someone else to stumble, guess what you do? You give up your right. You give up your right for the good of someone else. You don't want to cause someone else to stumble. You sacrifice your right. You have the right to do it, but you give up that right for the good of the body and the good of other people. Goes contrary to everything inside of us, goes contrary to the philosophy of the man on the street that says, no, minimum self-sacrifice, all about self-indulgence. You don't indulge yourself. You sacrifice for the good of other people. Then in 1 Corinthians 9, he talks about the power and the authority that he has as an apostle, but he's not going to exercise that power and authority. He's going to sacrifice that power and authority ultimately for the good of the church, because the church is in such a mess, he doesn't want it to be used in a negative way. And then when you get to 1 Corinthians 10, he basically ends this section with this powerful statement. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, I got to get to chapter 10. I'm looking at chapter 9. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 23. 1 Corinthians 10, 23. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. Now look at this. Here's the key verse. 1 Corinthians 10, 24. Let no man seek his own, but every man another's wealth. In other words, don't seek your own, seek the good of others first. Put others before yourself. That's the biblical mindset. Sacrifice self, die to self, don't follow self. Don't look out for your own interest, look out for the interest of others before yourself. That's the biblical mindset. But we get so caught up in, say, political drama. Now, guess what Christians are doing right now? We don't care what's good for the democracy. We don't care what's good for the country. We don't care. No, we care about what's good for ourselves. So if we're asked to wear a mask, I'm not going to wear a mask because that's a liberal thing. I'm not going to do it. Well, what about if it protects other people? Nope, the whole thing's a fraud. Well, you know it's a fraud? Like, you only care about yourself. They asked you not to travel. I'm going to travel anyway because that's what I want to do. Well, my church asked me to wear a mask. I'm not going to wear a mask. I just won't go to church because all you do is care about yourself. This is the essence of sin, because sin is the exaltation of self. That's the very spirit of sin. It's the exaltation of the I. It's all about I. And then I'll end with this. And I've got all kinds of scriptures here. We could spend hours just looking at scriptures here, but this is the one that I think is so important right now. This one is so important. Philippians chapter 2. Every Christian needs to spend a lot of time in Philippians chapter 2. All right, here we go. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. Philippians 2:3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory. Don't be doing anything for strife and vainglory. Don't be doing things that cause strife and do things for your own vainglory. Hey, President Trump, he's demonstrating he's doing things through strife and vainglory. Don't do it. Now, for Christians, look, you can argue Trump can or can't do that. You just can't look at that, all the things that he's doing from a Christian perspective and say it's right. Even though you may agree with his politics, you can't say these actions are right. But in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves. Let not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. And then Paul gives us the example of Christ in the incarnation, where he gives up his glory and his rights to become a servant so that he can be sacrificed and die for you. That's the religion you believe in, where your God gave up glory to take on human flesh, to become a servant, become obedient even to death upon a cross for you. But then you take this religion and then you walk around saying, I'm going to make it about me. I'm going to make it about me. And during a time where we could show the world that Christianity is a religion of self-sacrifice and self-denial and placing others before ourselves and loving others, we've decided to take this entire pandemic and make it an issue about politics, churches staying open, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask, because we've wanted to make it all about ourselves. And all of this selfishness, from the White House to the church house, from the White House to the living room, all of this selfishness, self-seeking, vainglory, arrogance is demonstrating literally that Christianity is spiritually bankrupt right now. We are spiritually bankrupt because we can't even sacrifice a little of our own rights to possibly help, preserve, protect other people. We can't even go, wait a minute. Okay, look, I don't like the way the election went. Maybe I'm not completely convinced, but you know what? I got to do what's best for the country. I'm not going to sit here and fight and spread false rumors and lies and false witness. I'm going to try to do everything I can to bring people together because you want people to still have confidence in the democratic process. Now, look, I'm all for investigations, but sometimes you got to give up what is best for you for the betterment of others. And that's not always easy to do. Look, this is a spiritual mindset that is not natural. The natural inclination in my body is me, my rights, what I want. You come second, I come number one. Even if I don't say it, I demonstrate it by my actions just as you do. We can't learn. Look, what Trump is doing is an example of what we are not to do. His actions, his characteristic, the narcissism, the selfishness is everything that is opposed to Christianity. Don't follow that. Use it as an opportunity to look in the mirror. Look in the mirror. No, don't look, and when you look in the mirror, don't look with political eyes on. Look at yourself. Look in your own heart. Where is selfishness inside of you? Where is narcissism inside of you? We need to place it before Christ and say, kill this in me. Let me die to myself. Let me deny self, die to self, and let me not follow self. That's the biblical mindset. And all of these reports about Trump, there's one after another. And you're like, what are they doing? They're firing this person. They're firing this person. And then they're doing everything they can to install new people in positions that they're only going to have for a couple of weeks. Like, what are they doing? Why are you It's like and then we're going to block Biden from getting briefings and things that he needs for transition. Like, what are you doing? That is vindictive selfishness. That's something kids do on the playground. We don't want that. Now, forget your politics. We don't want that as an attitude that develops inside of us and shows up in our churches and our families. Right? Churches, I was trying to emphasize the plurality there. All of our churches, including mine. But just ask yourself, during this pandemic, have you demonstrated love and concern for others, or have you only worried about yourself? Are you more worried about your political ideology than you are about people? People are dying in large numbers, and it's like Christianity has gone basically AWOL, like Trump has gone AWOL. And that is wrong. Email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com. Everyone have a great day. God bless.